Welcome back to the Disrupt Education podcast. I'm Peter Hostrasser here with Ali Dahl. We are here to captivate you. We've got a huge problem. It's how to captivate kids. And our last week's guest, Mark Isaacs, kind of led us into that's interesting. So, yeah, let's go from there. Ali, what do you think? 2025's on fire.
It is on fire. We're just so jazzed about this topic and just the creative lens that it opens up for the year and just like I don't know, the winter doldrums can be upon you and you can feel like, oh, I'm just stuck in the middle of the year. I have to keep doing things the way I've done them. And I think the message of, changing it up and getting rid of things that you don't need, captivating your students in new ways, just
Mhm.
trying something can be the right time of year to like do it. And I know for me, it's so interesting. Like I did ask the question on the podcast. I was like, look, are people going to hear this message of like, captivating students? And now I need to go take acting classes and stuff. And because I've heard that message so much. And in science, as a science
Mhm.
educator, there is a lot of like showiness, especially in chemistry, like setting up a demo and what we call a discrepant event in science. It's something that makes kids think because what happens isn't what they're thinking. And so I would actually always start off the year. It was a few years into teaching, I found this what I consider was the best discrepant event I could do as a science teacher. And it was all about observing. And so I would light a candle and, I would have the students just like write down anything and everything they observe.
Mhm.
And then I would be like, okay, a couple minutes would go by and they would be bored. And that was totally intentional. And then I would pick up the candle and I would eat it. They would be like, oh, wait, what?
I would be like, that's awesome because now I'm like, tell me more. Why?
Exactly. Right, exactly. Like I can't reveal, you can look it up, you can figure it out. Like I'll let you figure out that problem. But it really would captivate students. I mean, I still to this day, when students graduate high school and they find me on social media and they want to friend me and stuff, they'll be like, did you really eat that candle? I mean, to this day, like they remember it. It gets them thinking. They will ask me day in and day out. And I'm like, look, like the whole message with that is to get their attention.
Yeah.
In science, I think in some ways high school science, college level science has it easy because there's so many discrepant events that you
Yeah.
can do now. After we were done recording the podcast, Mark did say, he's like, look, it doesn't have to be something in your discipline, which
Hmm. Right.
actually is right. That made me think, oh man, all these creative ways I could capture students' attention because you can relate anything to chemistry. And
Yeah.
it would be so easy to just like, they would never know which direction I'm going if I were to apply his strategy. But like, I think in math or in business, in English, you really could take his approach of, a seeming discrepant event to captivate students and do something that you're interested in, and it will tie back to the learning. I think that's like nowadays it was such a relief to hear him say like everybody has the teacher's edition, the teacher's manual. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to be seeking the answers. So like how can you get kids to think? If you can get kids to think, then like, and they're not thinking about their push notifications, you're winning. Such a awesome thought of like it just opens the door, I think, to disrupt education is like, well, it's just the new goal is to get kids to think. How do we do that? It opens up so many new
Yeah.
conversations.
Right.
It doesn't box you in.
Yeah.
So I just love that. I love that message. I think it's exactly what we needed for the start of a new year, which is why we're bringing it to you.
Mhm.
And, like, yeah, those are some of my major takeaways. What were some of yours, Peter?
I like how it connected our final guest of 24 to our first guest of 25. Have fun, mess up, and what was the last one?
Oh, Jen.
Jen said it. Um, darn it. But have
This is
fun.
our, yeah, have
Yeah, I got to go
fun.
back into mine. So
I
so
know.
have
I'm like,
fun.
look, I'm gonna find it now. Now
Um,
we have to.
yes, I know. But what I really liked is to have fun, right? Like just have fun. Like and there are so many educators who are like, well, learning isn't fun. Why not?
Oh,
Why
be
not?
lazy, make
Be
mistakes, have fun.
lazy, make mistakes, and have fun. Yes, be lazy. So the lazy part, we kind of had a post podcast conversation with Mark a little bit, like being lazy. Like what I always go back to, what can kids do, right? Um, you guys want to have some fun? I'm going to give you tomorrow's topic. You guys, this team comes back and I want you to create a TikTok video for it. Like, try to captivate it. Do it, see what you guys come up with. We'll laugh at it if it sucks. If it's great, we'll laugh at it. Whatever, you create those environments. Or just finding different ways. Now, immediately, you're like, that's not going to work for some students. That's going to work for other, whatever. Like, you work through those, but just get messy with it. Have fun, but be lazy, right? I really think getting out of the way of the students is part of this captivation, right? One of the conversations that we had in one of the PDs, and we're going to get to AI, right? AI is awesome, right? And they're going to be, educators are going to fight back when they go, oh, AI is ruining education. Well, didn't the calculator, didn't the internet, whatever. No, like working with AI. So we challenged a a group of teachers to give us a subject, any subject, and give us a skill out of a list of 10 skills that the state of Illinois gets us, and said, give it to us, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a lesson with a video to open it that's personalized to a teacher who gave us the topic in less than 10 minutes. And a video, like a 90-second video to launch kids into this. Two things, here it was. And I was working with my colleague, Brett Thompson. He's a great dude. First thing, we need you to enter data points after launching things from your trebuchet. First thing in my mind is, I couldn't remember what a trebuchet is. It's a catapult. I'm like, for those who didn't know, which I didn't know. I'm like, okay. And then they go to the most difficult skill set or the competency that the state of Illinois wants through internships: cultural competency. So now I got to put those two things together, right? While we were doing the presentation, we set aside time because there was two of us doing the presentation. And then, it was like, ha ha ha, got you moment, right? And I'm like, at the end of this whole presentation, I'm going to show you how this, and it's going to be amazing, right? And you're kind of holding yourself to the fire, the pyromaniac here, Mark. And we did it. And it actually, the lesson turned out really, really well. And we're presenting on how we actually did that. But during the entire lesson, Brett kept coming over and it's like, can you do this, dude? Are you okay? And it was great, but we captivated that audience by saying, try to get us. And even if they did get us, Allie, it wouldn't have mattered. We're having fun. I was trying to be as lazy as possible by creating something with AI, but also challenging myself to where people can be like, aha, I got you. Or, oh my gosh, you actually did that, which the latter happened. But I think I was thinking about that during, our last week's podcast with Mark, talking about how do you captivate people. And it was fun. And I really do think like we can do it in a lot of different ways. So that's where my mind was going. There's so many other pieces and nuggets I will unpack here, but yeah, it was enlightening. It's scary. I mean, it's a little uncomfortable as an educator because you always want that control, etc. But I see where he's going, and I see there's opportunity here.
I love the line that he had so many one-liners that
Mhm.
I'm just like couldn't write them all down. but there was a couple like, where it's like someone could have a 30-year career in teaching, but they really just had 1 year repeated 30 times.
Yeah. Hmm.
And this idea, so then you also ask the question is like, well, how much time does school need to be?
Hmm.
And he gave a really great answer there. In my mind, it's basically like however much time it takes to get you to the next step, right?
Right.
Like it should be personalized, individualized. But he also brought up this really good point of, like whenever the messaging gets in to school that like we have to be serious and we can't have fun anymore because it's time to learn. And I think that somehow creeped into the educators
Hmm.
and everything. So like what you were just describing, like you were lighting up, you clearly had fun, you were learning, you were applying something like in a time limit and like there were so many factors. I was like, whoa. Um Having made a trebuchet, which is different than a catapult, I'm just gonna put that out
Is that
there.
okay? Is that, yeah,
It's
that's.
okay. It's like, but I mean, like for the sake of physics, like they do launch, typically a ball or a cannon or something.
Hmm.
It's just the launching mechanism. That being said, like you still like that's a you could tease that out later. Like you just got
Yeah.
kids excited or like educators excited. Like, look, this technology. Look how fun we can make this. I had a time crunch and I just like threw it together and it worked.
Hmm.
And I think that approach to education of like, let's just try it. Even if it doesn't work, we're still going to learn some stuff because we're going to have to dissect like why it didn't work. If it did work, we're going to be like, well, what did you do to make it work? Like it's a win-win.
Yeah.
I think right the mentality of education is it's so easy to be like we learn something to get an answer and then we regurgitate that answer.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's antiquated.
Yeah.
He said it, everybody has the teacher's edition. That's not why we're at school anymore. So how do we make it relevant? How do you develop skills? How do you captivate your audience? Novelty is a huge part of it. Before the podcast, we were talking, and I mean, like the coolest thing that I do is by far skydiving, like hands down, right? Like, I mean, it is. And I do a lot of things, but that is what everybody wants to talk about. And I
Hmm.
love talking about it. It's novel because most people haven't done it. Even if you've done it one time and it was like this great thrill and you're thinking about it because it's just like this whole override. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing it because you can really capture someone in a moment of time and it can be like a pivot point,
Hmm.
you know? And I think in education, like, I know I'm not saying like it needs to be like this whole skydiving event every day, but just this idea of novelty.
Hmm.
And it doesn't need to be this structure. And I was the queen of structure as an educator. I thrived in it and my
Hmm.
students did too. I do think there is a place for it. I definitely students know what to expect, when they come in and what to do and how to do it, like that can maximize learning for a group.
Hmm.
But there is a place for discrepant events, for novelty, to make it fun. My favorite days of teaching were certainly not the ones where I had to lecture a bunch of vocabulary to meet a
Right.
standard. There
Hmm.
were definitely the ones where I was eating candles. Fire related inadvertently, just related to Mark.
Yeah, and I like that as well. I think that it was super, I think it was super like just eye-opening to hear an administrator who is in the system speaking this, right? I think one of the biggest challenges, and for the administrators listening, is when you do evaluations and such. I mean, I know like this evaluator is very strict on, they want to know like is your objective on the board? Is your, is there a time frame for everything? Do kids know what to do when they come in exactly, to the minute or whatever in a classroom? And I think that was just really refreshing to hear. Mark is doing things a little bit differently. He understands that it's going to get messy into a classroom. And I really appreciated the fact that, if you're trying to do different things and you're making people think about anything outside of just mind-numbing like repetition, you're winning, right? And I really believe that. I go back to the Jack Ma kind of thought process is like, and this is a little extreme, but like knowledge is dead, right? Like meaning that you can find knowledge really quickly now, right?
Yep.
And it goes back to that teacher's edition that you were talking about. So how do we get students interested in something and just going deep into it? And I, the video that I saw in his conversation was the washing machine. You need to fix the washing machine. And I think about it, right? Like, the other thing is funny because I was thinking about, you know, you're looking up a recipe to cook something, right? Or just a different way to do something. So I eat a lot of smoking meats and vegetables and fish and different things like that, especially in the summertime and in the seasons that we can do it. Um, and I look these things up, and every time it goes into this big, huge conversation about, let's say we're smoking salmon, and it's like, oh, the salmon is a fish that does that. And I'm like, I don't need that. And I was actually thinking about that when Mark was saying, this is not captivating me. I'm scrolling down, and this person may have been the best writer and written an amazing fish story, but I don't care, right?
Mm.
So I'm on the hook. There's no barb, right? And I have clicked out and said, I can't find this one. I'm going to a different one. I like the fact that, let's meet people where they are. Let's be lazy about it, meaning trying to find the one or two steps to get there. The way we can do things now is we can create a hook for every different student in our classroom. It just takes a little bit of practice on how to get from 3 steps to 2 steps to 1 step. Um, it's possible. Some kids are going to bite the hook and stay on it no matter what. They don't even need a barb, right? So there you go. And then you kind of go through these things. And I think, in education, as the art that it is something that is amazing that every day is an opportunity. When I see a student not doing maybe what they should be, or not, I can't get them to think, I take it on as an opportunity or challenge. It's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. But if your mindset goes down into that whirlwind of, oh, every day I got to do this, there's I go back to it, man. There are two things you can do in education, right? You can quit, or you can carry on and still do the best that you can to get each student to think and learn. And I know that's what Mark is thinking with Captivate. He is trying to light everything on fire and get people into the mindset of back to, why does this matter, right? And like you said, even beyond your own curriculum, like, why does it matter? And
Mm.
kids will be attracted to your curiosity and what you bring to the table by who you are, well over the content. So culture kills content every day. It will beat it down. So how are you captivating your audience? And you don't have to be like the monkey with the symbols. That's all. When you said monkey, I was like thinking, and I'm dating myself. But you don't have to be like a show person in front of people. You just have to have conversations with students that are authentic and interesting, and be interested in your students, be captivated by your students. That was a huge rant there, but I'm just
I
feeling it right
love
now. I'm in the
that.
flow.
No, you're in the flow. I could feel all of that. And I
Yeah.
think Mark put us in that flow for
Mhm.
2025, right? Like he he really just set the stage for, you know, look, it's the middle of winter right now. This episode's coming out, and it's like I got this feeling of like when this episode comes out is that people are gonna be like feel warm and cozy and like
Mhm.
that they can they can do this. Like you're sitting around the fire. Some of my favorite childhood memories, sitting around a campfire, making s'mores. Like, there's something beautiful about a fire. Like it was the original flicker rate. When you
Yeah.
think about like people searching for light, searching for something to captivate them, fire was a big deal, right? And then you've
Hmm.
got new technologies that are captivating. And I think about really the essence of Mark's message is like kind of you can disrupt education, you can captivate students, and there's still pieces of you know, the original like fire, so to speak, that can remove all the push notifications. It
Hmm.
can remove like we can really start thinking again. Once you are in that flow, you're in that kind of creative mindset, and like it's really encouraging as an educator listening to this, you know, of like I am inspired to captivate my skydiving students and
Hmm.
my chemistry tutoring students and like even like anybody I'm like with, like how can I bring this kind of mindset to the world? He said something, I cannot remember now if it was on or off the podcast, but he's
Hmm.
like, look, like I can affect my piece of the world,
Hmm.
right? And I can influence that. And that is really what kind of keeps me going. And I also think that messaging is really encouraging for someone in the middle of the year feeling like, can I do it? Can I
Hmm.
make it? You can. And this is your opportunity to try something totally different outside of your comfort zone.
Hmm.
Skydiving is usually out of people's comfort zone and they love it. Nobody, like, I have yet to really hear someone before the jump be like, I have no fears, no doubts. This is totally in my comfort zone. I'm just checking the box. That hasn't happened. I'll ask some of the more, like, the tandem instructors that have been doing it for a lot longer than I have and be like, have you ever heard that messaging? Because it's not like, right, he literally said, don't be blind, question
Right.
everything, or like, look at everything. Well, in order to look at everything, you have to be willing to let go of things you have been doing.
Hmm.
And I, one of the cool things he talked about is like the kind of this blank page. This could be a really powerful exercise, I feel like, if you're feeling stuck. Find someone that you know is creative and wants to try new things at your school. If you're listening
Hmm.
to this podcast, I'm sure you have somebody you work with that you like talk to, or in the building or outside of the building. Heck, message us, okay?
Yeah.
Let's set up a Zoom call and let's do a blank page exercise with you for real,
Hmm.
because there we obviously love talking about ways to disrupt education and help people like get creative about how they operate inside the classroom and
Right.
in the system. And so it can be so powerful if you're like feeling stuck to talk it out with someone
Hmm.
and be like, how could I reimagine this lesson? How could
Yeah.
I reimagine this piece of education? Like if you're an administrator and you're like, we need to make a change.
Hmm.
Well, like get a blank page and find a partner and like do an exercise like that.
Yeah.
Captivate yourself, cap captivate somebody else, build your small tribe, right? It is a grassroots movement
Hmm.
ultimately, I do think the power is within the system so much more, right? He said he's like, people try and use technologies or ban technologies and then they creep in and like all this stuff. So it's just like, really the power is in the system already. It's
Yeah.
just activating it,
Yeah.
right? That got to get over in chemistry, we call it the activation energy to get the reaction going. So, like that's what we need for 2025.
100%. And kind of two thoughts here to kind of wrap this up. One of the thoughts that I always have is I think, I don't want to be here like all just, sunshine and rainbows because look, I've been in positions where in the classroom where things have completely fell apart, right? And
Mm.
I'm talking in the middle of the year or in the middle of a semester. And meaning like the kids just aren't there, they're not getting it. Maybe I've started and that reset or that blank page, blank piece of paper that Mark was talking about, I have done that within a class, and I have just stopped and asked students in the class, let's throw everything out the window right now, right? Let's start fresh. Like, what is something that you all may think that this, here's the topic. How do I get everybody curious about what, that's your challenge. Like, please, work with me here. And you'll get like maybe a small amount of the students that will kind of dig into that, right? You're usually go-getters that are not afraid of being vocal. Um, However, I will tell you at the end of that semester or that year, I have never ever had more kids than any time that I've done that come back to me and say, this was a great class because you really care, and you really got us thinking about X, Y, and Z. So even if you don't have like a crew, or you may have a crew that's constantly, when I mean crew, like of other educators around you or in your immediate area that are constantly like just dragging down. I mean, you are like everybody's like the five people to hang out with. So if you hang around five educators who are curious about captivating people and curious about creating new ways of doing things, you're going to become creative. If you hang around, uh, unfortunately, educators that are burnt out constantly and are constantly not moving forward, you're going to start to cease up, and I've done it. I'm not here saying I've never been around those people. No, I was a part of those curmudgeon, grumpy, constantly grumpy educators. There's nothing wrong with venting. I want to make that very clear. And I'm going to go back to that one thing that Mark said was, don't be blind. Don't be blind to what you are doing every day. Take a moment, take a self-evaluation. And I think that blank sheet of paper is that start to that. And I think that's how we start a new year. Yet, you're going to teach the same as the old year, or what is one small thing that you can change, which I really like about that. And the AI piece, we're going to be talking a lot more, I think, about AI and different ways that it can really open up. I've got a lot of stories. I know you have a lot of stories about AI and how it can really open up students' learning, and they drive their own captivation and curiosity with it if you teach it to them correctly. We're going to open all of that up coming up on this series. So, yes. Final thoughts, Allie.
I was thinking about this because I didn't know exactly where to fit it in, but rather than a final thought, I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? I want to try something different, a little novel.
Let's
I'm gonna
go.
do like a final story. That I think people, I mean, you've been on the, if you listen to this podcast, then we talk about skydiving as it relates to education. So I had the privilege of taking a, a a high school student the day he turned 18. It was a Saturday, came out to the drop zone to do a tandem. His parents walked in with him and they were like, well, he's an adult now, so he gets to sign his own paperwork and, like the license or his ID said, he's 18 and, he really wants to go skydiving, get him up in the plane, do the training and everything. And, he obviously loved it. From my perspective, right, as the instructor, I'm like, he needs so much more training. Like he was wildly unaware of his body and
Mhm.
like he, like just moved in ways and it was fine. It was fine. Like, that's why I'm there to like be the stable part in
Mhm.
in the jump. But I was thinking about this as it relates to the classroom, right? Like students in the classroom, they have this desire to like learn and like they're especially high school students, they really want to be adults. They really want to do things on their own. And when they do, you let them go out and do it and like they will need you. Like
Mhm.
it they think they have the answers just because of AI and because of all of this, but then they're going to realize like I don't know how to synthesize. I'm not aware of when I'm in the moment, actually, like how to put words to what I'm experiencing. And like that comes from experience and from like building your craft. And you can do that in high school. And the earlier we obviously help students do that, the less like flailing around they'll be.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really a cool opportunity for 2025. Like I asked Mark, like what's the biggest opportunity for 2025? And I think for me, it's one of those things is like remembering that our youth and our students, even though they think they have all the answers and that they don't need us, is that there's this beautiful opportunity for them to realize that they do, even if their age they think they don't. And
Yeah.
so I just thought that that was a cool moment for me to be like, he can be a great skydiver, but he's going to need a lot more training. And like, you can check the box on something and think, oh yeah, I know it. But an expert is going to be like, you're not quite there yet. And that's okay.
That reminds me of my static line when I pulled my knees up, and I will never forget that. I love that story as well. And it's kind of like the stop and let's jot down what happened, right? When you have a log, right? As a skydiver, you log
Ew.
your flight
Every
log,
jump.
and I think as educators we need that time to log and self-reflect, and even if it's an amazing experience like this young man who jumped at 18, who's going to remember that the rest of their life. um if you stop and reflect what comes next, I think it
Exactly.
becomes clear and you start to captivate your own learning journey. So I love that. This has been a great conversation, kind of recapping Mark Essick's book, Captivate, and going further. We've got a lot coming up. 2025 is here. So for Allie Dahl, I am Peter Hostrasser. Thank you all for hanging out with us. 2025 is just beginning. So let's keep it going, and we'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrasser or Allie Privet.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.